Games have just built the best feedback loops, the best incentive mechanisms, the best virtual economies as well. I think they've Fortnite, think about World of Warcraft, RuneScape. These games really have nailed sort of how to build a virtual economy. And then most crypto companies, like especially in consumer space, just like threw all those things out the window and just focused on like, let's just build the economy and like none of the other like feedback loops or the other fun features. And this just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't resonate with like the masses. Like they're driven by fun and having something to do when they're bored.
This episode is brought to you by Jito. Jito is the easiest way to start earning MEV rewards on Solana through liquid staking. Get your SOL, stake it with Jito, and get instant access to liquidity through their liquid staking token, Jito SOL. Get started today at jito.network/staking. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Lightspeed. Today we're joined by Vibhu, the founder of DRiP. DRiP, if you don't know about it, I didn't have too good of an idea just about 2 weeks ago, but I've been looking into it and it might be the top application and protocol on Solana today. Vibhu, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So as I was getting ready for this episode, I was going through some of the podcasts that you've been on. And one of the things that you said is that in the next 6 months, DRiP is going to open the floodgates and Solana may never be the same again. So that's where I want to end up and see why you said that. But I want to start off with just what DRiP is. And to give everybody an idea of the adoption that DRiP's already having, there's been 17 million NFTs minted. And because of compressed NFTs, which we'll get into, it's only cost $2,000. And I believe this has been over, is it 900,000? About 800,000 wallets received an airdrop. And they have about 300 to 500,000 active wallets a day. So if any app has found product market fit in crypto, I think this might be it. So yeah, it'd be great if you just gave an overview, maybe the inspiration and behind DRiP and what it is.
Sure. DRiP started at Solana Spaces, which was a set of retail stores that were designed to onboard people into Solana. And when we were working on those stores, we just found like there needed to be a better way to introduce someone to crypto other than tokens. So we started giving people free NFTs and free artwork basically, and it really resonated. It was really amazing kind of retention tool. We started sending them every single week with Solana, even using the old NFT spec, and the list kind of grew and grew and grew, and it kind of went out of our control in January, and we decided that we're going to focus full time on this project. So what we do is we partner with creators and artists and brands projects, and they use our platform to send out free digital collectibles every week to a list of people. And those collectibles are all kinds of stuff. Like we have art from a typewriter with DGenpo. We have music videos from live shows from Vault Music. We have comic books with Bork. We have science, like with microscope science with McQuinn. Just all kinds of stuff. People are distributing it out for free for users and for the creators. On a regular basis. We send around 3 million NFTs a week, which is unheard of in the old world of NFTs. But with this new spec that Solana has compression, it's totally possible and it's very affordable.
So you said these collectibles that you do send out are very different in flavor. You have maybe audio, you have some actual art, you have, I think there's some by BetDex of like sports moments, which I personally subscribe to because I'm a big sports fan. What do you like? I think that's a very new mental model or framework when thinking about NFTs, whereas before they were kind of just these JPEGs, which you put on Twitter, and now you're part of Tribe X. Now, I believe you've kind of termed this new way of distributing these things as content, like D2C content. Yeah. Can you talk a bit more about that? That's because it's such an obvious idea, but nobody really put it quite that way before. And you have, and you found success with it. Can you just, talk about how you think about this?
Yeah, it's one of those things that's only obvious once you've seen it. And then it's like, okay, of course, like why can't NFTs be any types of content? Basically, our NFTs, they just don't function like normal NFTs, not in any fashion, even though some people use the same terminology. We sort of think of this as taking an object of content, a video, a music file, whatever it is, then wrapping it in this composable layer, which is what the NFT is, right? What is actually an NFT? I don't think most people that trade NFTs even understand what exactly is happening. What an NFT is you have a storage of metadata somewhere, which is like, not to get too technical, but it's basically a file that like outlines the properties that are inside the NFT and also a link to where the NFT exists. Sometimes that NFT, like the file itself, is on some decentralized storage provider. Sometimes it's in, Amazon S3. And the NFT itself that the user owns is basically a pointer to that piece of metadata saying, hey, this address has this file. It doesn't matter where, other than ordinals, which is an exception to this, everything else in NFTs basically works the same way. So in our opinion, we just felt like, okay, well, that's that data structure. Like we can stuff all kinds of stuff in there. What happens when all content is kind of open? Anyone can add to it. Anyone can build on top of it. And anyone can distribute them.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've said that DRiP you think is the best way or the best chance that NFTs go mainstream. Why is that? Like what's so unique to DRiP over other platforms? And as a creator, like why are so many people going to DRiP? I mean, I quoted the amazing growth you've had so far.
Well, let me reverse that a little bit. Like what of the Web2 products that we have today that are at scale would have been at scale if they started with requiring you to KYC, transfer tokens, save your seed phrase, like, pay $100, $1,000, whatever the mint price was, to get into like we wouldn't have Facebook, we wouldn't have Instagram, like none of these things would survive. They would not exist today. So I think we just came at it from a very practical standpoint, which is that people, first of all, most people don't have any money. Second of all, most people don't want to KYC. They don't understand the tokens. They're very, very scared of crypto stuff. They don't want to lose, what they have, what they've invested. So I think, at a basic level, free tokenless is just the only starting place for a very, very big scale product. So let's put that in one bucket. I think on the other side, okay, well, once we solve that, what are the things that people in the world like to do? They like to watch videos. They like to listen to music. They like to look at pictures. Like none of those things are, again, they're freely accessible on the internet. You just boot up TikTok or Instagram, whatever you want, and just zone out, right, for a couple hours. So I think we're just saying, okay, let's break the barrier on the accessibility side, and then let's just like give people what we already know that they like, which is like content that's engaging. And it just happens to have all these superpowers that you and I know exist in crypto.
That's a very good point. And it almost, in my mind at least, draws somewhat of a parallel to just social media, something like Instagram, where you scroll and you see videos, pictures, reels, shorts, but also just quotes as well. So different types of content. So I guess the natural question there is, what is it about NFTs that makes this different than just, using a database, for example?
A lot of stuff. I think some of those things that come to mind are like things that consumers might care about, and some of them are things that developers might care about, and some of them are things that creators might care about. I want to start with creators because I think that's the place where the most inequality has sort of showed up on the internet so far. Today, when a content creator posts a picture on Instagram, whether it gets seen by 10 million people or 3 people, the content creator doesn't get compensated for sharing that information. And that's okay, to be honest, because most of the content that's shared on the internet has no value to anybody. But the thing is that when that becomes someone's business, when a creator is using content to make money, or to anchor a business that they're running somewhere else, all of a sudden it starts to become very unfair when the content creator is producing the content. It goes into the platform is now utilizing the audience that creator has built to serve ads and kind of capture the economics of that transaction. And literally only in the last couple of years did most platforms realize this might be a problem, that creators should get compensated for these things. And so you've seen things like subscriptions in Instagram, and Twitter, and Twitch, and so on. But the reality is that, like, from day one, the economics were just really, really tough, and almost entirely aggregating at the platform level. So I think what we've sort of stumbled upon as an opportunity is the NFT is kind of this like sliver of attention that gets captured in that moment on chain, where creators created something, they sent it to somebody, and it went directly from them to you, even if it was done at 200,000 people at a time. And that sliver of attention, you kind of own it because you have it in your wallet. So if you want to keep it, if you want to share it with somebody, if you want to even sell it, that's something that's totally new. That NFTs kind of enable. From the user point of view, I think it should feel the same. I think it should feel very, very close to subscribing to any other, following someone on TikTok. We're getting there, but the reality is that we kind of crawled up through the degenerate ecosystem a bit. And so the way the product feels today is like kind of a mixture of like the NFT game where you're like rarity and then you also have content, and they're all kind of coming together in this unusual way. So we'll see where that goes, but it shouldn't feel different, I guess, is where we want to be.
How did you get to the point that you got so much traction so quickly? I think you went live in October 2022. I know like low cost is part of that. I'm not exactly sure when compressed NFTs went live. I'm curious if that played into the adoption that you've witnessed, or like how did you start that network effect? And now that you have over 800,000 wallets have received an airdrop.
Yeah, so we turned on compression when we were around 120,000 users. So we already had scaled quite a bit to that point. Yeah, honestly, it's just spread virally, word of mouth. I mean, we kind of, from very early days, we had a invite code system. You had to have an invite code to get in, and the way you got invite code was from somebody else. And our early users were fanatical. I mean, every time they got an invite code, they would share it with somebody else that they knew, whether that was an internet friend or someone IRL or someone in their family. And it just had this like really awesome K factor from probably like December onwards. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. Like we work with a lot of Discords and Telegram groups and projects to distribute codes in different ways. But yeah, honestly, it's been totally word of mouth. And nowadays we also work together with creators to onboard their people. So many of our creators have sizable audiences elsewhere, 200K on Instagram, 1 million on TikTok, and so on. So when we bring them in, we work together to try to transition some of their existing followers over.
When you closed down Solana Spaces and you moved to this, because you saw this as the best onboarding mechanism, did you think that this would happen? Or like, yeah, are you surprised by the traction?
Yeah, I think I am surprised. I thought it would be a little bit slower, a little bit more difficult. What people don't know is how much effort we spend on multi-account prevention as well, like Sybil resistance. So we've had this like balancing act from day one of figuring out new ways to grow, new audiences to grow into, and at the same time stopping people from trying to kind of attack our systems and farm accounts. And yeah, honestly, the last couple of months have been pretty mind-blowing. But this is not the first time I've built a social product. I started my career in social. I started my career at Roblox and building a company called EverMe, which was a social network. And like, I think to me, like the same stuff that we used to do kind of still applies. Like if you build a nice onboarding system, if you have referral systems in place, if people like the content and they're addicted to it, like they'll tell somebody else, and at like enough scale, that thing kind of has a life of its own.
So a lot of people actually don't know about your background, and I do want to touch on that a little later in the episode. But while we're talking about kind of the earlier days of DRiP, one thing I'll point out is that at least on the Bird app, or now the X app, this wasn't necessarily a fan favorite at first. I would say you had some critics about the idea for DRiP, and why are you spreading so many different NFTs? You're going to dilute my bags, or, just classic comments on Twitter. And so you had to actually overcome a pretty fair amount of adversity, I would say. Can you describe what those days were like? And what was your mindset when seeing these comments?
Yeah, we still get them. So I guess I don't feel like we've overcome anything, but yeah, there was kind of this uncanny valley of growth for us where in the early days, the size of our drops was kind of competing with like art editions. And so for a lot of artists, it felt like, hey, like you're giving away stuff for free. And, over here, we're charging for it. And therefore, you're stealing audience away from what would otherwise make them money into something that didn't cost anything. And I think for the most part, we've overcome that just with scale, because you just can't compare a drip drop with anything else in crypto. Like there's just nothing else out there that like consistently sends out millions of NFTs every single week. So, if you thought this was competing with art, now you realize this is really competing with Instagram. And yeah, for the most part, we've gotten past that. Nowadays, the big thing that's on my mind is how much financialization to welcome into this product, because the crypto people all want it to be financialized, hyper financialized. Our team's vision is like completely the opposite. But the same thing that you said about like, why are you diluting my bags? I think there's just like some level of expectation across all people that entered crypto that even if it was free, and no matter how you kind of got in, that you're going to take care of my bags in some fashion, even if those things I didn't pay for. So we're starting to see like, hey, I hold a bunch of NFTs. Why aren't you doing this or that for me? That kind of like stuff. And it's interesting, but I'm very I've been around for a long time. We listen to our customers, but we also have a pretty strong sense for where we need to go. And this thing the only way that DRiP is kind of a massive success to me is if it really breaks through out of crypto into many, many other people's hands. And it's something that gives a lot of people joy. And a lot of people is like tens of millions. Otherwise, it'll be very hard to make the economics of DRiP. Even though the costs are small, they're not as cheap as Web2. So we just try to stay focused on where we're going. If there's FUD, let it happen. That's just kind of natural with the territory, I suppose.
Talking about financialization and speculation, I know you're not a big fan of the speculation side of crypto. It's probably like your least favorite part of this. It is interesting though, because speculation really comes down to being a game, and like financialization is a game, right? In many ways, like DeFi is almost gamified to some sense. So you talked about how you used to actually work at a gaming company. And you said you've gotten a lot of inspiration from gaming, and I think it was Fortnite when shaping and building DRiP. So I'm curious, like, what do you see in gaming, which many people probably know this, but like gaming is bigger than music, entertainment, and movies combined. So it's a huge industry, and especially with the younger population. So I'm curious, like, what's been your inspiration from gaming, or like, what do you see in gaming today that you want to bring to DRiP later on?
Yeah, that's a good insight. I mean, every young person grows up playing video games instead of watching TV. And they're playing, things like Fortnite, but also like, Clash of Clans on their phone. Like they're playing these very cheap kind of gotcha games as well. Um, I think the best games are very good at reinforcing like positive feedback loops and kind of training your brain to enjoy playing, but also enjoy the the journey to the reward. And having to balance how much dopamine you're allowing someone to have in any given moment is just an interesting thing, right? If you played a game and like let's just a theoretical game, there's a treasure chest that shows up on screen every 3 seconds and you can tap it and open it. And there's a big confetti blast, and like you get some item in there, right? Okay, I'm releasing dopamine maybe the first couple times I open the chest, but it starts to get boring, right? So you want to have a sort of like a loop where I've done something, I put in the effort, I've checked once a day, I've checked a couple of times a day, I've done this. Now I get a reward, and it makes me want to continue to do this. So yeah, games have just built the best feedback loops, the best incentive mechanism, the best like virtual economies as well. I think Fortnite, think about World of Warcraft, RuneScape. These games really have nailed sort of how to build a virtual economy. And then most crypto companies, like especially in consumer space, just like threw all those things out the window and just focused on like, let's just build the economy and like none of the other like feedback loops or the other fun features. And this just doesn't work. Like it just doesn't resonate with like the masses. I guess they're driven by fun and having something to do when they're bored and not much else. So yeah, the product is it's not fully fleshed out yet, but I mean you'll definitely see over the next 6 months that the DRiP will feel more like a game in terms of how we kind of push you in from being casual to being an expert. But doing that without attaching financialization to it is a challenge. And I don't, I was thinking about this today, like whether financialization of crypto is a bug or a feature. I think it actually is just a feature. I think, when you browse Facebook mindlessly and they're feeding this, all this content into your brain, we just sit there and let them use us for whatever purposes that they want, whether that's like altering the political landscape or serving us McDonald's ads, whatever it is. We just let that happen. I think the fact that crypto users kind of demand that they participate in those economics is like a very beautiful thing that we do need to acknowledge and figure out, okay, can we make them equitable participants here? Make sure that like DRiP, the company, doesn't like take every single dollar out of the ecosystem for ourselves, because that's kind of how we end up back where we used to be.
Before DRiP, you were actually at Solana Spaces, and before then, you had some other. You actually found a company again, and you also had a pretty great blog post. I believe it was a blog post about your time at Nest and what you've learned and kind of your journey so far. Can you give us a little
You really
crash
did
course
your
on
own
that?
research. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I just been doing startups my whole life. It's all I ever wanted to do, was to build new things. And I think that the like thread between everything I'm interested in kind of starts at this like chip on my shoulder that I don't know why it's there. I think you have one too, Mert. I know you have one, in fact. And that chip kind of just drives how I think about stuff. And like my life's mission is really to take things that are inaccessible and make them open to all. And what was appealing about Nest at the time was when I joined was that they were building these beautiful products that were kind of forgotten in your home, and Tony Fadell was just Tony is probably like one of the most empathetic product designers ever. Like he designed the iPod, the iPhone. So being able to sit next to him and just hear how he thought about bringing people into a thermostat was just a master class in product design. And I wasn't executive. I was a software engineer, so I'm not like saying I was in the room with him like that, but his conference room was right next to me, and he would spend hours in there just like breaking down the packaging that Nest came in, right? And thinking about, okay, what should the person see first when they take the box off, and what should be underneath that? And like these details, that level of detail, you just don't get to see that much. And I think I've definitely borrowed a little bit from that. And I mentioned that in my old blog post that I haven't read in almost 10 years. But yeah, coming into retail from Nest was exactly, very similar to DRiP, just in a different industry. What we were trying to do was take the concept of having your product on a shelf and move it from something that was, only for the very biggest companies and make it accessible to the smallest ones. And even though, which was the name of the company, doesn't exist anymore, we had a very big impact on the retail industry. Like retailers all over the world now, they all have programs that allow small retailers and brands to come into their stores directly fashioned after what we did. So yeah, I definitely like, if there's one life mission for me, it's trying to think about breaking these artificial barriers. Like, most of the barriers in our world were designed by people that were designed by people. They weren't designed by markets, and therefore, like, they have the flaws of those creators inside of them. You know, there's so much to do. I mean, crypto is an amazing industry that if we can only get past ourselves, it will really have a big impact on how the world works.
I love how you're an engineer. Yet when you talk, you're like so focused just on building a great product, and you're thinking about the users and you're thinking about creators. Whereas the majority of builders in the space are on crypto Twitter, especially in maybe the Ethereum ecosystem, and it's more like academic, and you're arguing about like decentralized sequencers. And I've heard you talk about like, yeah, DeFi is great, but that's like maybe not your thing, or like, you know, like token protocols and so forth. So it's really refreshing, and it's also exciting to see someone like you with that attitude has one of the most successful products out there in crypto today. So I think that's really cool. Hey everyone, quick break to tell you about Jito. Jito is the #1 liquid staking provider in Solana. Jito's been known for their MEV software, and now they're the fastest growing liquid staking provider in the Solana ecosystem. Solana DeFi summer is heating up, and what asset do you want to use in DeFi? Liquid staking tokens. Why? Because with Jito, you can take your SOL, stake it, and get instant access to liquidity through their liquid staking token, Jito SOL. You can then use Jito SOL throughout the Solana DeFi ecosystem while earning yields through MEV rewards and staking rewards with Jito. And Jito makes staking super simple. You can take your SOL, stake it, get instant liquidity, and start earning rewards all within 3 clicks. And not only do they make it simple, they make it secure. Jito has 7 audits, they have more than 1 million SOL staked, and they're one of the most respected teams in all of DeFi. Jito is for whales who need deep liquidity. It's also for people like me and you who just want to get started with liquid staking. You have your SOL, why not stake it, earn some yield, and start dabbling in Solana DeFi. So go get started today. Check them out at jito.network/staking. That's jito.network/staking. I'll put a link in the show notes. Use the link so they know that I sent you, and go get started today. Everyone, we'll get back to the show in a minute, but I want to let you know that we got our Permissionless conference coming up. This is our conference with Bankless. That's the biggest and best conference in DeFi. It's going to be in Austin, Texas this year. Yep, I know you love it. They got tacos, barbecue, Barton Springs. Got it all. September 11th through the 13th. If you've been in crypto for a while, you know that the bear market conferences are the best conferences because those are the ones where all the alphas had. The people that are still in crypto all really want to be there. It's going to be great for building a network, for learning a lot. And look, we've got a phenomenal lineup of speakers that include people like Hasu, Stani, Christine Moy, and Kyle Samani. Talking about ZK Tech, rollups, account abstraction, MEV, app chains, and more. Look, I'm damn excited. Because you're a listener of Lightspeed, you're going to get a special discount. Type in discount code Lightspeed30 and you'll get 30% off your ticket. That's right. Just type in Lightspeed30 when buying a permissionless ticket and get 30% off. Click the link at the bottom of this episode and go get it now because prices are going up every 2 weeks. All right, back to the show. One thing I wanted to make sure and touch on, because you're talking about how something like DRiP enables for like the long tail of creators to get distribution and be able to get their assets out there and connect with the community. But when you are in the age of AI and content creation and zero distribution costs, how do you think about aggregation or curation to help put those artists out there? Because I think that has to be one of the most difficult parts of crypto and just tech in general.
I'm actually like personally like very anti-curation, which I think is in line with my accessibility thing. Like, the world is full of people who want to sit in between, you know, artists and creators, and you know, broker where those, like, who should be buying what and what things matter. I think what I like about NFTs as a structure for this is that it can't be interrupted by a middleman. It's when one of our creators drops content to you, it literally goes from, you know, their wallet through you know, I don't know, Helios. Okay, we'll throw in some tech in there, but you know, basically it goes directly from the creator to the customer, and so, you know, the customers need, like, at the end of the day, like, the customers are the ones and the recipients of these drops are the ones that will curate with their dollars and with their attention and time. right now we just we have to make decisions because even though it's very cheap to send NFTs, there's a lot of other costs to getting started. Like for example, one thing that we never talk about, maybe we should, is that just onboarding a single creator into the data structure that compressed NFTs use, creating a tree costs close to $75 today. So it's not zero. I mean, if you had 10,000 creators, now you're spending almost $1 million, right? Whereas you could put 10,000 rows in a database on YouTube for zero. So it isn't free. So we do have to be a little bit, we do have to gatekeep a tiny bit, but I think long term the play has to be to make this just a tool to facilitate a creator building a list of followers and sending them composable assets.
So in Lightspeed, me and Mert like to pretend that we're creators or famous creators. How would we, for example, as a podcast, use DRiP to create these NFTs and distribute it to the community? Like, I guess what would the selling point be, and then how would that actually work?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've talked about it, so this is not like a new idea for me, and we've definitely talked to many people at video podcasts about this. I think you kind of get a bunch of stuff rolled into one, right? You have the ability to distribute this content freely, just like you do. I mean, the podcast spec is built on like RSS, right? It's like, or it used to be at least.
Yep, it is. Yeah, we go through Megaphone, which then blasts it out to like Spotify, Apple, and then we also post on YouTube.
Yeah, I feel like RSS and like podcasts are like the most similar actually model to DRiP in the Web 2 world, because you like the user actually does have like some kind of ownership over that data, just because of the way that most of these apps try to sync between like what you're sending out and what the user has already done or seen, right? So yeah, you would build a list with us, right? We'd set up a creator page for you, people would subscribe, and then we dropped in the episode every single week. It would be not wholly different, but what becomes interesting is, hey, maybe there's a behind the scenes, take, or there's questions that didn't make it to the full version, or there's other things that you might reserve for people who donated to you, or collected other editions or been there from day one. And this is very cool because people like to say, "Oh, I was listening to Lightspeed from the very first episode," but you can't really prove that today. With DRiP, you really can. Like, the chain doesn't lie. So if you received this content on day one, you actually were there, and that's interesting for the consumer, but also gives you as the creator a way to like think about, okay, how could we like maybe take care of people who were here early or who supported us really deeply from day one to get to some bigger stage. This is something that you don't care about right now because you guys are just getting started, but like think about, a year or 2 or 3 years from now, you'll have a ton of data at your disposal to build interesting programs.
Yeah, this might be a little bit wonky from like a podcaster's perspective, but when I thought about putting, for example, Lightspeed on DRiP, one of the things that comes to my mind is attribution, because we want to see how many downloads we get, for example, on Spotify versus Apple. And I'm curious what type of attribution a creator could get on something like DRiP. I know you've tweeted in the past about how you have a large focus on UX. And because of that, you wouldn't be able to, say, serve ads like you might have in Web 2, which this kind of goes into the monetization of DRiP. But I'm just curious, as a creator, what type of information could you get from your audience? Do you think about that and like almost mapping audiences out, like having cookies of sorts on a blockchain? I know it's a lot of questions in one, but I'm curious what you think about like getting to know your audience through data that a creator can see in DRiP.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have different types of data than you have in Web 2. And you could, of course, instrument it with normal data collection stuff like surveys and so on. But yeah, I mean, the chain, has a full, complete record of what other things that wallet might be receiving or interested in, what they're paying for or donating to. Imagine like if we had hundreds of crypto podcasts, I think you'll have a pretty good sense of what other people might be good candidates to listen to your podcast. And you can do that with zero part data. Like, we don't even have to sit in between. You also could send your podcast to someone else's audience, which is a totally brand new idea that's only possible in Web3. Hey, I don't know, what's another podcast that you guys have today?
We've got Empire, Bell Curve, 0x.
Yeah,
Couple
you
of
could send, yeah, like you could literally send the first episode of Lightspeed to Empire, and you could do it without their permission. Do people want this? I don't know. That's kind of the jury will be out on that kind of stuff. But yeah, attribution is a very interesting question, and it's very hard to build a good ad business model without some kind of direct attribution. And I've kind of thought about this from a composable standpoint, because your content is on chain, sitting in the user wallet. If that user's wallet touches anything else, maybe it's something specific that you're trying to get them to do. Say you're trying to get them to also subscribe to your email newsletter, and that activity is connected through the same wallet. Now we have a link between these two things, and we can build interesting incentive structures between them. And you can literally pay people to do that, right? Hey, connect your wallet and sign up for email service, and we'll give you $1, right? So, and this is what many brands are already doing with DRiP today. We're just observing, sitting back, watching many of the projects build out different attribution solutions, and they're all based around, connecting that same DRiP wallet to some other place and doing it without our permission, which is an incredible thing.
I'll just add to that, because you can also, as on top of everything Web said, you can also just embed cookies and whatever sorts of trackers on the NFT metadata itself, just like Web 2 as well. So I would say you actually probably have better tools, and or these more expansive tools that you can use for attribution and tracking. And while we're on maybe the topic of attribution, and so we've talked a lot about DRiP and what it enables for users and creators. A common critique that I've heard, you've definitely heard, is the monetization aspect for DRiP itself, right? How do you think about that? How does DRiP make money? Does it need to make money? I see you already smiling, so I'll let you take it.
I mean, every time someone asks me, I'm like, you know what? Thank you so much for your concern. I'm really it's like they say it in a way that's like as if we're not, we don't realize that we're not making money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're fully aware of that. Where I'm basing the entire future of this business off of is the fact that the most profitable companies in the world they all build free products. And if you just look down all the fan companies, Facebook, let's talk about Google or Facebook. These guys make between $10 a user per month and $40 a user per month, depending on where they are in the world, just from ads alone. And I like making $100 a month off of 1 billion people. You're one of the very best companies that's ever existed. So that's kind of like can we get to that place in the future? And how do you ask for that $100, right? Do you ask for the user to pay for that, or do you ask businesses to pay for that? That's really just what it comes down to. So, our direction here is, let's build a big audience. Let's not reinvent the wheel of monetization. There's lots of amazing models that have been built already. Let's figure out a way to, at scale, to help businesses, or even creators or influencers reach the audiences that they care about using NFTs. That's the critical path. But if we overtune monetization right now, we are just shooting ourselves in the foot for sure. And that's our users want this, because this is where we disagree with our users a lot, because they want this to be smaller, because then the NFTs might become more valuable. There's less supply. But it's just that going down that path is a path that takes us into, just being another NFT project. We're not going to do that. DRiP is going to remain free for a really, really long time, probably forever.
To talk about how maybe DRiP is impacting the industry as a whole, I know DRiP's relatively new, but clearly it has with the volume that you picked up. You tweeted out how DRiP's potentially shifted the Overton window to some degree from some misguided ideas that we had about NFTs, and how supply is meaningless. NFTs are not investments. Free art does not mean bad art. Anything can be an NFT, and audience is greater than money. I'm curious, what do you think the future of NFTs is going to be like? Like, do you think it's something that's just used for everyday items? Do you think it's going to be more of the collectibles and like premium objects that you see on Ethereum? What do you think the future of NFTs is?
I think it's probably, if I were to guess, I mean, it definitely is going to be a huge spectrum, and there's no, you can't, I don't think we're going to get rid of them at all. There's always going to be someone that has an idea for a digital community they want to bootstrap with NFTs. But I think the middle is going to be washed out. I think you're going to have basically a lot of freely accessible or hyper accessible NFTs with big supply. And I think you're going to have much smaller communities, maybe even than 10,000, that are basically, you know, exclusive country clubs that just happen to be on the internet. That model, like, I can't find a fault with that model, to be honest. Like, I've, you know, in Solana we have like Boogles, which is a collection of only 100, and these things sell for, I don't know, $50,000-$60,000 each. You know, there's definitely like, there's going to be space for that kind of stuff. What I don't like about the 10K idea, and that's kind of what I was talking about in those tweets, is like 10K is a very arbitrary and weird like number to choose, that all NFTs, you know, decided that they're all only going to be every 10,000. Like, it's not small enough to be like, you know, only available to like the wealthiest class of crypto people. But it's also not big enough to be accessible to the masses. So like, I guess if I were to guess, it probably looks like the way our globe looks demographically. Like, you have, unfortunately, most of the world is very, very poor, and probably like the vast majority of people are going to trade in very, they're not going to trade. Maybe they're going to be working with things that are free and have a lot of supply. And there's like, the middle class has been disappearing for some time, but especially in developing world. I just think, yeah, it probably mirrors that at enough scale. But today, I'm fairly convinced that's like the 10K PFP game is done. Like, we will not, we may see another like small pump or something like that, but from a like where they sit in the ecosystem, I just don't get it. I can't find an argument for it.
So, Vib, you just made a very strong statement that DRiP will probably be forever free, right? And you have made similar strong statements in the past. My particular favorite is this one. I'm just going to read it. This is on July 25th. We will not launch on other chains. If you want free art, comics, music, videos, and in-game assets, get a Solana wallet and join 400K plus on DRiP House. If you don't want to try Solana, that's fine. You'll be missing out on the most fun and accessible product in crypto. So obviously I retweeted that. That was a very, very based post. And I want to ask the obvious question, which is, why do you feel this way?
What is the argument exactly for switching chains, other than there's a foundation giving us a grant to go and build the same thing somewhere else? Like, there's no first principles argument for why this is something that users want. And what we need to do as DRiP and as an industry is figure out how to break out of the crypto audience and find people that are not here today. And if you jump from Solana to Optimism or Arbitrum, whatever it is, Polygon, it doesn't matter. You are basically stating that we haven't solved for making our product interesting. All we've solved for is liquidity and trading and speculation. And I mean, you can't convince me that anyone is doing that for the tech or because they can't get something out of Solana. So I'm just focused somewhere else. Solana has the tools to scale to 1 billion users right now. And that's what I want to do. That's what we want to do. And going to Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever chain, it just doesn't solve that. So I don't know. Like, everyone needs to keep their eye focused on the ball, which is making crypto a part of the rest of the world.
So Vib, what are you cooking up over at DRiP? Because this was, I think, a week ago. You said in the next 6 months you're opening the floodgates, and I think it's a quote. You said Solana will never be the same. Talking about having in the future bringing onboarding hundreds of millions of users. So I'd love you to talk about that.
Yeah. So during the 2021 bull, we saw a couple of like famous people do things in crypto that included like buying or getting gifted a Bored Ape from MoonPay. Most of them were being gifted these, or like dropping a 10K PFP collection that is probably worth $0 today. Like those were the two things that like influencers did. And what's interesting is if you understand creators today, especially the biggest ones, and you ask them what things they care about, they don't care about making money. They're making tons of money from sponsorships and, I don't know, they walk out on the Kardashian TV show and they put their bag on the table and Louis Vuitton pays them, $600K for that, right? So they're not worried about money. They're worried about audience. They're worried about being relevant and getting their content in front of, the next generation. And I think what DRiP can offer here is another way to reach young people that is different. And this is why they go. This is why they, if you look at Instagram, TikTok, every single one of them had their moment where Twitter even had this moment where, it went from, people like me who were in San Francisco, interested in sharing my thoughts to overnight, like breaking through with some big influencer coming on board. And as soon as that influencer shows up, if it's the right one, Kim Kardashian, whoever was back in the day, other celebrities start to show up. You start to build this healthy flywheel where the mainstream audiences are interested in seeing what's going on over there. So, my goal is to be ready for that moment. And, we're not right now, to be frank. Like, why do I say 6 months? I mean, it might be a little bit longer. But we need a lot of stuff that we don't have. We need a better way to sign up. We need, there's a number of things I won't go into. And once we're there, once we feel like we've gotten to that point or we're a little bit away, we're going to go hard after bringing in major content creators into the platform. And some of them are coin operated. Some of them will understand the vision. It's just about finding the right ones. And, on that side, it isn't so hard to reach these people. I guess I'll just say that. Like the right content creators today, they're investors. They're investing in a lot of startups. They're always thinking about what platforms are coming next. And they're not going to dismiss an audience of millions of people who are young, wealthy, connected, and engage a lot. They're not going to want to miss out on that. So we're just prepping for that moment. And when the right person comes on board, yes, like Solana will change overnight because you're going to have like 5, 10, 20 million people that we've never seen who are going to be engaging with NFTs in an interesting way. And like a small subset of those people are going to find the rest of the ecosystem too.
Do you think people are going to be doing that through like Phantom or Backpack, or is it going to need to be something easier where it's almost they don't even know that they're interacting on chain?
They're going to be doing that through the DRiP mobile app.
Is that live today?
No.
Okay.
It's not even announced, but we're definitely working on mobile. I mean, it's a must.
So I'm going to ask some, I think I'm going to ask probably one of the more annoying questions for a founder, at least if I were you, I'd be annoyed by this. So obviously you've found something here and it works and it looks promising and you have big vision here. So it's only a matter of time before competitors start annoying you. And I think maybe this is probably already happening to an extent. As a founder, how do you think about competition?
I've been thinking about the idea of like founder paranoia, because I know, founders of very big companies as well. Like every founder, you will never say it out loud. I would never say it like that. We care about competition like that, but but like, yeah, I'm definitely like always thinking, okay, like someone, what if there's a variation of this idea that's like a little bit different, that's like much better, right? And history is littered with like things like that, like Snapchat as an example was like a tiny derivation on like 20 other mobile apps at the time, like Path and what I was building. But there's like something about the way that they built it that just was a rocket ship and everything else kind of tanks. So yeah, I'm always thinking about it. But uh, you know, what we I'm not really sure what the question is. You just said, am I thinking about competition or concerned about
How
it?
do you think about competition? Like, what's your mental model?
Yeah, I mean, what I what I worry about is just, to be honest, like one of the hard things about building a crypto company is every aspect of our data is public. Like you can't hide anything about our user growth, our numbers, supply, all that kind of stuff. Like it's all out there. Retention, if you wanted to, like some user did an analysis the other day that was pretty amazing of like how many of our users that receive a drip NFT as their first transaction on Solana, like do other things in Solana. So it's interesting to have like a war field of people who can like attack the business model just from a data perspective. And as a founder, like a venture-backed founder, like you, Mert, like I mean, part of your job is to like understand the narrative and control it to an extent, and you can't really do that in crypto. And then there's this other thing, which is all of our users are wallets, and all the wallets data is public. And someone could tomorrow say, "Hey, this is DRiP 2, and by the way, it works exactly like DRiP, except we're going to give you points and we're going to give you tokens as a reward for collecting, and that airdrop's going to happen in 6 months." And then we get blurred to death, right? And like we can't even stop it because all the data is in public. So that is the vampire attack is a very unique aspect of crypto that I definitely like am thinking a lot about. But um, so be it. I've been around for a long time, and what I hope is at least we make an impact on the industry. And if we get to that point, I'll be disappointed but happy.
With competition, what do you think DRiP's biggest moat is? Is it maybe the relationship with creators, or is it the brand?
It is right now, but long term, it's going to be monetization, for sure. Like that's the only thing that will keep creators around is if we can figure out how to get them paid consistently. But this is a hard question because it's very tempting. I posted this the other day. It's really tempting just to like turn on features right now that just get them paid, but don't set us up for getting them paid over a long period of time. So we're very sensitive to that stuff. I promise. Every single day we sit down and like there's at least one idea that we discuss that's like off the vision, but would be good for the short term. And staying focused on the long term is it's hard, but it's something that we are doing.
So taking a step back while we're maybe on a meta founder and startups topic of competition and whatnot, how do you think about, obviously DRiP is a very distribution heavy platform. It's the name of the game for DRiP is essentially distribution. But you also obviously worked at Nest, and you earlier in the episode, you talked about how you learned to appreciate detail and product design and how that's influenced some of your thinking. How do you think about, especially in crypto where you just said everything is like open source, people can see everything. How do you think about product versus distribution in crypto? What is just to say my most niche word again, what is your mental framework for navigating product versus distribution?
I mean, I think for pretty much everyone, like there's this very famous meme in the founder world, which is like the term product market fit. Like it's so popular that it has an acronym and everyone uses it, PMF, PMF, PMF. And I've always been skeptical of that idea because like most of the world's best products were created markets out of thin air. And like there was no market for search when Google was founded. Like Google and those companies like made that happen. So I think there's a lot more science to building companies than people think. I think product market fit is like this idea that like you're going to keep building your product, and then one day it's going to fit some market, and then things will really take off then. But in my experience so far, there's a push and pull at every moment between those two, and you are kind of whittling away at both at the same time. And really great standalone products, like standout products, they create markets from their existence and from the sheer power of the narrative and the comms that they produce. And I think like where a lot of founders go wrong is just building endlessly, wondering why nobody's showing up. But it's much more important in that spectrum to, figure out how 50 or 100 people are going to love your product, and, building something just for them, and then, seeing where it goes. Product is just the easiest thing to do, because you can just like commit code to Git every day, right? And you feel like you're making progress, and like, why aren't things working? But nobody cares about what anyone is building in the world. They only think about what's fun and interesting for themselves, or what's useful. And so, yeah, my thought is like, if you're like, if I had to choose, I would build distribution before product. If you're a little bit more experienced, you kind of build those things together in lockstep, and you try not to push one too far ahead of the other.
That's a great answer. Do you think there's an inherent difference, because you've been a founder in both Web 2 and Web 3 now? Do you think there's an inherent difference between being a founder in Web 2 and Web 3?
Yeah, there's a huge difference in a lot of ways. For sure, the biggest change for me was building in public, having to tweet all the time. I didn't tweet before I was in crypto, and I found out I was very good at it. But that wasn't like, I'm not an influencer. I just like speak English very well. So like that's sort of been like the way that we kind of got into the ecosystem. And then the hours are very intense. Like when I'm ready to sleep, most of the world is waking up. And so like, that's when it's most hot on Twitter, most hot on Discord, and all of our kind of customer service channels. So you cannot work 9 to 5 if you're a US citizen in crypto. You have to work like 10 to like, midnight pretty much. And then weekends too. You don't get weekends off, because I don't think anyone in crypto understands that the builders behind these products have lives. They're very insistent. They hold you to a high standard. I also think the investors are very different. Like Web 2, like raising money, I've raised over 100 million in Web 2, and the discussions there are very focused on, what does this thing look like in 5-7 years? I think crypto investors are very impatient. I think they want tokens. Like 90% of the VCs I met, they'll say a lot of things, but what they want is tokens, and what they understand is having privileged access to a token supply at a low cost, and being able to sell it on top of retail when they don't care about the vision as much as that stuff in some cases. And yeah, they're much younger. Like everything in crypto is young. Like I don't know how old you are, Mert, but I think you and I are probably about the same age.
Guess.
Are you in your 40s?
40s?
Mid 30s? Mid 20s?
Yeah.
17.
Okay.
No,
We're on the same age. You're 27? All right. Well, I mean, that's interesting.
The hair though.
I'm definitely old for this industry, but yeah, it's super, super young. So I still feel weird. Like on Twitter, I have no problem like saying things that like 19-year-olds say. I can't do it in real life. Like I'm not going to be sitting here saying like, that's
No
based
cap.
AF, all that, no cap. Right. Like I can't utter those words, but on Twitter, I'm just like, yeah, it's like based AF,
You have a good Twitter. You have a really good Twitter. Hey, talking about VCs, I'm curious, like, what is the metric that you think matters most to DRiP? Like, what are you watching? And then I do like this concept of like a hidden metric. So maybe you can't quantify. I'm curious on both of those. What would you say?
We mostly been focused on DAU, DAUs right now. Most of the stuff that we're kind of working on in the future is like focused on driving daily use to our website. Today is pretty strong because people come back to play this game we have called Legendary Lock-in, where they can open a treasure chest once a day and lock in a low supply edition. So yeah, DAU, MAU, and then hidden thing. I mean, like my brain right now is like very wrapped up in Sybil stuff. So like I've spent, and this is the hidden like thing that we've been working on forever, is just like trying to control how many people want to game our system in different ways. I think in that way we're very similar to video game companies, because any company, video game that has a virtual economy has like a lot of time and effort focused on trying to separate real from unreal, from inhuman. So yeah, like there's DAU, and then there's like on the onboarding side, like how many unique human beings are accessing DRiP. Yeah, like more difficult in Web3 than Web2 for sure.
Garrett, do you have any last questions or others? Otherwise, I'm just going to do rapid fire.
Let's do the rapid fire.
All right, let's do it. So, Vib, this is our rapid fire section. I just make up questions. I don't prepare these beforehand. And you try to answer them as quickly as you can. But obviously, if some of the answers or questions require further insight or you want to dive into it, feel free. But yeah, we'll just keep it short and fun.
Okay.
All right. So, okay. Well, you just said you found out that you're good at Twitter. What are 3 tips to people listening to be better at Twitter?
Active voice, humanity, and keep your links out of the main post. Put them in the side post.
Does humanity mean like don't be a troll, or
no? It means like be human. Like don't be don't sound like a robot or like an advertiser. Yeah,
gotcha.
That's a very important one, actually, especially in the age of AI, and you can always kind of tell who's using ChatGPT and who's not, right? If you weren't building DRiP, what would you be building?
Probably a theme park.
Did not expect it. What type of theme park?
I don't know. I just like the idea. I think it'd be a really interesting challenge to build like a modern theme park. Like most theme parks today are very old. They're kind of like I've had this theory for a long time that you could start a blockchain centered around like a theme park and build from there, because like the biggest theme parks in the world, they have like cities that like pop up around them. You need hospitals, you need hotels, you need housing for the workers, like Disney Springs, right in Florida. And so like you wanted to start a digital nation, like you can make the center point this like hub of activity and fun and entertainment. And like there's so many interesting rides and experiences that no one has ever built. So yeah, unfortunately those things cost like billions of dollars and take a decade or more to plan. So I haven't found the time for it.
So actually, I remember you saying something about DeFi and having a controversial take on that. What are your thoughts on DeFi?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I don't really understand it. I don't understand why. Like I don't even understand what some of the terminology means. Like there's like this is the complexity of like some of these things. I don't know why anyone would care. I don't think any real person wants to swap things back and forth. Like loans on chain are just a complete dead end. Like everybody abuses them. It's just there's just no accountability there. There's no like none of the credit scores matter. Like none of the things that anyone's built have mattered there. So as much as like the theory is very interesting, the only like DeFi thing that I care about is like swapping between the base layer token and USTC, and pretty much nothing else. I don't think it's a scam. I just don't get it personally. Sorry.
That's fair. That's fair.
Do you get it?
Do I'd like to think so. I mean, I like it, but I do agree that it is certainly not user friendly in any sense of the word so far. And obviously, with somebody like you who's super focused on that part, I can see how you would think that way.
Like, how often do you do anything with your bank in real life?
And
do you want to? And do you enjoy it?
No, I don't. I do not. Probably like my biggest use for DeFi is using Jupiter, and I'll just mess around and do like liquid staking to like help secure the network, and then I'll use that to like get points on margin or something like that. But I do agree that it needs to be made much more accessible and have other use cases. So maybe I don't get it as much as I think I do. But I do think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, for me, it's like I see use cases for maybe like 5% of the population. For example, getting access to USDC or US dollars in a nation that you can't do that, I think is a valuable use case that we have right now. I also see it as something like fantasy football, or, right now I have friends that are betting on digital horses. I think they could use DeFi over that for at least, I know speculation may not be high utility, but something
that's
that
true, but that's kind of a bug, right? Because like no normal person cares about what the underlying currency is. They just want to spend their dollars or their pounds or wherever they live, right? It's just kind of an artifact of crypto that like we have thousands of tokens that have wildly trading, prices. Like I would never want my mother to like swap US dollars into like some random token, I don't know, like Pepe, and like hold on to that for any reason whatsoever. Like that kind of stuff, I don't know. I just feel like I think
that sort of stuff is, I think that sort of stuff is maybe for the power user or the power degen. Yeah. Whereas I think that maybe the mass appeal uses that, you would actually tell your mother, hey, buy this shit coin. I don't think that's really the use case. I think it'll be more like, I don't want to say Celsius or BlockFi, but like trading on like DEXs and like getting passive yield from that and stuff like that. That could be interesting if there's a intuitive layer on top of it. But as it stands currently, then I would agree with you. I don't think it's ready.
Well, let me put this. I think what's very, even though I don't understand it, what I think is very stupid is that that people think that if that the chain only works if the DeFi ecosystem is working. That's an absolutely absurd concept. Like, no, like the chain works if real people want to use it for things that they care about. Point blank, like nothing else. TV, all that stuff. It's all made up stuff.
It's a good hot take. I think my last point on it, I think if somehow DeFi can help improve the efficiency and allocation of capital in whatever way that is, then like that would be the end use case. But yeah, I think it'd be hard to argue that is happening today.
I think what we should do is we should have Vib and somebody from Solana DeFi on here for an episode in a few weeks or a month, and they should battle out, because I think like you're making some solid points as well.
I mean, I just can't. I don't understand it, so I wouldn't want to be in that situation. And like these founders are good people. I'm sure that they are building something that in their worldview makes sense. I just don't think it's going to solve the fundamental thing that we need to solve as industry, which is like convincing people like my mom, my younger brother, to be interested.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and it's actually partly why I say like we need much better marketing and messaging. Like, why should I care about Solana? Why should I care about order books and all this? Like, we need to message this much better. Okay, back to rapid fire. Who's one CEO you look up to in the whole entire world? In history.
Our world. In history. What I'll give you a weird answer. Do you remember this company called MoviePass?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I thought that was he's such an interesting CEO. You can read about him sometime in his background, but like I'm very taken by like founders who have like ideas that like only work at like a really, really massive scale. Like those ideas have a lot of appeal to me because most of the time they just they don't work. But I enjoy I'm happy to know that there are people out there who can see like a problem at a very big scale and want to fix it at the highest level. For people that don't know, like MoviePass is basically trying to like Netflix, the movie industry, the movie theater world, where you could subscribe for a fixed fee and then go see as many movies as you wanted in the theater. And great idea, and they got squashed by the like monopoly of the big theater companies who are all going out of business anyway. So yeah, that's probably the weird answer that came to my mind when you said that.
I actually use a similar service today in Canada. It's called Cineplex Plus or something. So Cineclub. So I actually like the idea. Talk about Netflix. What show is nobody watching that they should be watching?
Shows nobody watching that they should be watching. So my like popcorn answer is like my wife and I, we really enjoy The Circle. Have you seen that show? I don't know why. Just really, I don't know. Are a lot of people watching it? But like, I don't know. I just enjoy it. It's like it's fun. It's interesting to see how people behave in these these weird experiments. Truthfully, like since crypto and DRiP, like there's just no time because at night we're working every night, so I don't have any like interesting picks there, unfortunately.
Vib, what do you think about Doodles, who started off as just an NFT collection, and I think now they may not even call themselves an NFT, company, more of an IP company? Like, do you think that's a route that's gonna work?
I'm pretty bearish on that category of companies because I think that there's sorry, you might hear my son in the background crying.
No worries.
Like there's a very binary moment in the traditional NFT world where like the second that you ask the community to fund your project by buying your NFTs, your life will never be the same again. Like I know I've gotten to know a lot of NFT project founders. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy because now you have 10,000 or 4,000 people that are wondering when you're going to give them a return forever. And the thing is, we don't have a good mechanism for brands and IP companies to deliver value in the way that NFT holders want it, based on the success of that entity. So you just end up in a point where you have these two disconnected things. Like I think you can build a great brand, like of course you can, but trying to tie that to something that someone paid money for as a digital asset without breaking the law right now is virtually impossible. So, like the thing that drives the price of NFTs is speculation and non-delivery. There's no project that has delivered on the roadmap that has satisfied holders because you just can't. You can't satisfy them. You deliver. I mean, the worst thing you can do is deliver a roadmap, to be honest. Like that's why, like the very best founders, NFT founders, like the ones that have kept their price very high, they do very little. And the game for them is pushing the ball another step forward. Of course, all of them will collapse at some point, but you can keep that going for a couple of years for sure. I'm not talking about anyone in particular.
Mm-hmm. How old's your son?
My son is 3. My daughter is 5.
How do you explain DRiP to your daughter?
I haven't, but she does like wander into my Zoom meetings a lot when I'm talking to artists. So, and she really loves drawing. My son is 3, man. He doesn't understand anything, but she likes looking at the art, and she really likes the Klanos. So she likes we have a pink dinosaur that I bought her. So sometimes she'll come and ask me if she can see it. But I don't think she understands what's going on. It's just a picture for her, right?
Does DRiP have a one-liner, like how you describe the company?
Yeah, we say free digital gifts from your favorite creators.
Okay. 2 more questions. Other than the DeFi one, what do you think is your most controversial take that you believe is true?
None of the blockchains are worth their market caps today. I think they're all worth a very, very tiny fraction of what they what they are. Like basically, blockchains get valued at the like 50-year terminal like valuation of that network. Like they just and not anywhere based on the economics of those underlying networks. Like for all of the next gen blockchains, I have a deep concern about whether or not they will make enough money from the fees to pay for the cost of the network as it scales. Because Helios, I mean, is something that kind of helps with this a little bit. But like to me, like the 50 biggest apps and the 50 biggest infrastructure companies like built on something like Solana will all be significantly bigger than Solana itself. And this is like a flippening that no one will talk about until it happens. But that's partly because the apps aren't big enough and the infrastructure isn't big enough, but partly because all the networks are overvalued.
I actually think Anatoly feels the same way, which it's a very under the radar thing, but I think you're right, where the apps and the infrastructure companies will be bigger than the chain itself, and then thus they have an incentive to keep the chain going, which kind of really changes tokenomics and economic model of the chain. Okay, last question. So you're obviously a founder yourself, and you've founded companies before. You've raised money, you've built products, you've done distribution, you've probably spent way too much time on thinking about things no human should be thinking about as a founder. If you could compress what you've learned so far and give it as advice to aspiring startup founders or other startup founders in crypto, what would those sentences be?
One, it will serve as a disclaimer for the advice. Don't listen to anybody, because everybody is wrong. All the investors, some of your and most of your customers, sometimes your team members. Like there's so many external forces that want to exert their what is good for them, even if they don't mean to. It just happens. So for a founder, like to go from the first time they've started a company to becoming Jeff Bezos, part of your personal process is becoming very centered in in yourself and your beliefs. So and I think that that's just a very important thing to understand what has value to you, and not let other people convince you otherwise. I think two, and that includes me. Don't listen to me as well, or anything I'm saying here. I think two, most of like a lot of what I think about is kind of this like global local thing where I'm sure you think about this too, where the stuff where you want to go and the things that you have to do to get there feel very disconnected. And you want to kind of tie all those things together into like a tidy narrative. But the reality is that the history is written by the winners. And if you see outside some other company and they've told their story in this certain way and it feels like this linear path, that's always a lie. Like every company is twisting and turning and making mistakes and like, facing like near death situations, whether it's Facebook or it's a, Magic Leap. Like all those things have the same problems. And when you get to the top, then you get to tell the story how you want it. So, I guess the point is like, it's okay to experiment with things that don't fit the long-term vision. It's okay to make mistakes. But I like the Jeff Bezos saying, which is make sure that all your doors are two ways. This is why like the NFT, the 10K NFT thing, when you have a project, like a really promising software product and they launch an NFT collection, you get very worried for them, because that is a one-way door. And you remove a lot of optionality for yourselves. Same with tokens, to be honest. It's the same thing with doing like an ICO. The third thing would be find an awesome like get a wife or like a spouse, because you really it's really easy to get lost in what you're doing and lose, especially in crypto, which is such a crazy, like, it's hard. I'm sure you know it's hard to talk to other like normal people about the world that we are in. But I think like having friends that are outside, having a support system, having family and a spouse that can keep you anchored in the real world is more important than ever today. So, Mert, are you single?
No, I actually surprisingly have a girlfriend of 4 years now.
That's great. Lock that down. It'd be a great decision.
Yeah, Mert, you don't want to go on a date and have to describe what an RPC provider is, and so you're
Oh,
in crypto. Vibhu, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm fired up about DRiP and already seeing the traction you have today, and I'm gonna wait for 6 months to see these floodgates open. So I am pumped. Thank you so much for coming on. This is a really good conversation.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Mert. Thank you to Helios for free RPCs. Unlimited use. This is our running joke. Helios is not free.
You mean Helium Foundation?
Helium Foundation. Yeah. All right, guys.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.